I have been messing around with camouflage for decades. Now I know it's one thing to say, but for those of you who are familiar with my work, if you look back at some of my very early lecture notes, there's a trick in there. That's where I first had the idea of the card case that's cut in half and then comes together and the whole deck's fused. This idea, that particular idea of two halves of a pack of cards, hey, I asked the guy at the last table to cut the cards, he took it a little much. That idea was inspired by a Paul Harris idea. Many years ago, Paul had this idea based on a pool cue. And how, I don't know if you shoot pool or not, but or billiards, 9-ball, is that it's one end has the sort of the bolt, the other end has the screw, and you can screw the pool cue to get the two halves together. So Paul had this idea of taking a pack of cards, gluing them together, the two halves, so they were actually solid decks, having a carpenter friend of his put a bolt in one end, and that way you could take them, screw them, but then you had to do a deck switch. Kind of novel and kind of fun. You had to carry around a second deck. Then you had to do a deck switch and all this kind of thing. Good seated, not so much standing. So anyway, I saw that idea and I thought, oh, that's a cool idea. Is there any way I can make it more portable, more easier, and no deck switch? Can I show the two halves of a pack, fuse them together as an opening effect, and boom. So anyway, that started a long, long time ago. And when I was first playing around with that, I was using a piece of gray paper with pencil lines on it, which looked okay, depending if I was in a pub or a darker place, whatever. But then when I started to really explore this idea more recently, I said, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so what I did is I experimented, and finally came up with a perfect cardstock that looks wonderful. Now, just so you don't think I'm saying, oh, it took a while, and you're thinking, well, why would that take long? Because I wanted to include something that would work with almost every pack of cards in the world, not a brand new deck, which are very white on the side, and not an older broken-in deck, which tends to look more like gray or even an oatmeal-y color. I wanted to include with this a pre-printed, beautiful, gorgeous gimmick that would look good from even a couple of inches away for a pack that maybe you've had for a few weeks. I know it sounds crazy, but believe me, when you start drilling down and trying to figure out, okay, what exactly is this thing supposed to look like, I started to look at my decks and realize, wow, there's a range here. Now, don't get caught thinking like a magician. There's only one effect I'm going to show you here when the two halves are shown in the card case thing, where you're comparing visually in the same shot an ordinary pack of cards and the gimmick. So there, of course, you want them to look really good together. Though, again, I just sort of do this, people think it's a gag, and then when it comes out, they go, whoa, that gag went from sort of a joke thing to something that was very magical, a great opening effect. But most of the things I'm going to show you, there's no comparison point. You don't show the deck of cards, your ordinary deck, and right beside it the gimmick, so they have to look perfect that away. So I get a bit anal. I got a bit hung up on the development of this and wanted to make sure it looked beautiful for you guys, and I think I nailed it. So let's jump into a whole bunch of crazy things you can do. Where to start? Well, let's start with this. Okay. Like I said, this cool gimmick works with any pack of cards in the world. What I've done here is I've taken a card case, okay? And I've cut up and across and down, just an ordinary card case, okay? But I've left this part so it hinges, okay? Left that there. And if you want to reinforce that with a bit of tape, you could, of course. I've also cut off the end. And the neater you do this, and again, there have been times when I've used this effect so much that I've actually taken a little tape, folded around the edges here, so that even this clean edge stays clean and doesn't start to fray like these things do. It is cardboard after all, okay? So what you have is a tube here, okay? So I've cut off the end. I've cut short, long, and short side, okay? And then, and this is the primary principle behind this whole stuff, is I've cut out, and my advice to you is to first always cut them a little too long and a little thick. Easiest way to do that, of course, is to take a card case, hold it up against the gimmick here, make a little pencil, cut a little pencil mark there, and then you can cut the whole thing out. Always cut it a little too long and a little too deep. So then, and even when it's, you'll find that even with this gimmick setting up here in the studio, is when I taped it down, and then with one piece of tape right along here. The nice thing about the tape, and the tape is on the gimmick as well as inside the case. The nice thing about that is that the tape not only holds it on, but allows for this like a book. It can lever, right? And so what you can do is you can put it in tape, and if at last minute you have to trim off a bit here or here, it all works beautifully, and then it fits right inside there. You want it, of course, held in. Oh, and one last really important tip too. Is it on this one? No, but I will show it to you in a bit. Anyway, so I close this up, okay, like this. Then I slide the cards into the back end. Okay, they can be face up or face down, doesn't matter. And you will find that when you compare the two together now, let me pop this, make sure that gimmicks, there we go, is they look to all the world, boom, there we go. And don't get too caught up thinking like a magician, like I said here, okay? I mean, there's no question, and of course, I'm not gonna grip this like, you could, okay? Because I'm hiding about 1/3. Now notice, when I cut this, I'm not cutting it right in half. I'm deliberately putting about, I guess, 60% on this side, so there's less for me to hide in my tiny hands, all right? Now this thing usually sits like this in either my case or my jacket pocket. It's pretty thick, with a rubber band around the whole thing that can sit in my pocket like that, and the whole thing is ready to go. It doesn't get disturbed, okay? Then when I want to perform, I come out like this and show this like this, and can make some, it's like a pool cue. It comes in 2 pieces. I grip it both sides identical. Boom, boom, boom. And then when I bring this up, all you have to do is using the pinky, is I'm just going to push this here, push it into the, give it a push into the case as I spin it around, okay? And all the work is done. You can show this front and back. Don't flash the end. You can show it front and back though, which is cool. Come over here, open the flap, and it is a beautiful fusion effect of the two halves. This goes into your pocket and in your case. This is totally ungimmicked. Everybody wants to examine the cards and they can. And you can go right into your first opening effect, having done magic even, I think it's really important when performing for real people to do magic as soon as possible. That if you can do a piece of magic in the first 10 or 15 seconds and establish credibility, it's a great way to go. So this is a marvelous way to start. To come out and go boom, show the two halves, make some line about, it's more compact. Or, hey guys, how you doing? The last time I showed someone a card trick was yesterday. I asked the guy to cut the cards, and he took it a little too far, that cutting card thing. And then you, of course, boom, put them in, go into your first card trick. Okay, so that's one effect you can do with the camouflage gimmick. Let's look at another one. Here what I've done is I've taken a playing card, and I've taken a little piece of the gimmick there, and again I've taped it on top. Now, this is a wonderful way to end your show, okay, with a complete vanish of a deck of cards, complete vanish of the deck except for the one selected card. And the way I perform this is you have a card selected, you force your 8 of diamonds. Force it back in the pack, shuffling, and you cut the cards. Is that your card? It's not your card. You miss it. Okay, let me try something else. And you go on another card trick, do a card trick, come back to this guy, still cut, that's your card? That's still not your card. Okay, so twice you miss. Then when you're done, put the cards away in the case. You can put the case in your pocket or put whatever. And basically what I'm going to do is switch in the card case that's already gimmicked and all set to go. Rule of 3. I mention this a lot in my work. So you missed it once, did something else. Missed it again, did something else. So what a lovely piece of theater to end your performance by saying, hey, why don't we try one last time to try to find your card. Okay? So that's sort of the presentation for the whole thing. The actual handling is very much as you've seen so far. Say, why don't we try one last time? And I've switched in this prepared empty case with the one card. I open it like this, and I say, I'm going to try one last time here. And I let everybody see again, okay? Let's say, let me try one last time, and I make sure they can very clearly see. Now, don't get caught thinking like a magician. If you open the flap here and you see that the angle, like in this case, the angle of the gimmick is slightly down one way. In live performance, I wouldn't think twice about that. I just show them the cards and go on from there. So don't get caught up in the small stuff. There's that old adage that so often the audience only starts chasing you when you start sweating about the silliest of stuff. If you're not sweating, they're not going to get suspicious. So I open up the card and say, let's try this one last time. Now I know your card is one of these 52 cards. I know it. It's about being able to find it. Let's see. And you show it to them, come back here and you go like this. And as neatly as you can, you're going to push your thumb right there, closing the gimmick, finger on the outside, and pull out. So it's like this. Let me see if I can find it right about, boom. Is that it? And they go, yes, and you got it. And you say, well, and then this can go south, put it in your back pocket, throw it in the case, hand it out as a very weird souvenir. I wouldn't do that. So you're here like this, put it in your shirt pocket, say, close it back up, and say, now it's for the other 51 cards, and do not rush this. You've handled the deck. They just saw the deck. The fact that you are not only going to make it vanish, but make the entire pack vanish, and end clean with an examinable card case. I mean, that's a sweet situation to be in. Now, notice that with this same setup, you can do a bunch of things. You can have this flap just glued inside the case, okay? So essentially, not on a card, and it would look exactly like this, but it's taped inside the case. So another opening effect, you can walk up to a group of people and say, hey, can I show you a card trick? And you pretend that someone does, oh, maybe not a card trick, okay, how about so anything you can put in here, you can tip the case over and spill it out. And the flap will just flap for a second, and you can show cards and then boom, pour out a small coin pouch with some coins in it. You can reach in and pull out a whole bunch of rope and do a rope thing. You can pull out sponges. You can do whatever you want. You can change this case, you can transform a deck of cards. Now, if you do this having already taken cards out, done a card trick, do a deck switch for the card case that's already set up. Now, they've handled the deck. They've shuffled the cards. You show them, hey, you guys want to see one more card trick? Maybe not. How about boom, boom? So you can transform the deck of cards into literally anything that can fit inside here. Or frankly, if you don't mind wearing, if you're wearing a jacket, you could have a magic marker. You could have anything, even remove the bottom, and you can still grab this from your case, load it in, show the deck, and then reach in and pull out something bigger than the case. Okay, so the deck can change into something even bigger. So the possibilities with just a bit of the gimmick inside the case are endless. So many ways to transform stuff, make stuff vanish. All right. So we looked at that. We looked at this. Let us look. Oh, and I do not want to forget to mention this cool idea: invisible thread. So what you can do, if you want to make this angle-proof too, is you can literally take this strip, right, and cut 2 or 3 panels from them, tape them together, and you'll end up with something that looks exactly like a deck of cards, but is basically the same weight as one playing card. Which means with some invisible thread, either with loops, the loop gimmicks, or with some invisible thread, you can essentially make a deck of cards float between your hands or off the table, even off somebody else's hand. All because now you're basically dealing with a shell deck made from any brand of playing cards and a few strips of this taped in. Easy. Now, last thing I want to show you. This is, I really was pleased when I came up with this handling. I'm going to show you 2 different versions. And before I go any farther with these whacked gimmicks, a big thank you to my buddy John Bing. Thank you so much, man. You were a big help with this. Johnny's one of these really smart young guys. I bounced a bunch of stuff off him, and he came up with a whole bunch of fine points for this that will be incorporated into what I'm showing you right now. So big thanks to John. Originally, I had this idea. Well, let me show you what originally I had this idea. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have this gimmick, okay, with a hole in what I've done. And this you can do with a pen, you can do it with a pencil, or if you make a hole thick enough for your Sharpie, you can even put the end of your Sharpie through the deck of cards to create that visual. But in this case, what I've done is I've taken a pencil, and I've pushed it through a playing card right near the end, okay, and I've worked it back and forth, okay, like this, so that the hole's pretty loose. Do not say it, okay, so it's pretty loose. And I've taken a length of the gimmick, and I've taped it on the underside of this card. Now this is the kind of gimmick you can easily either cop in out of your pocket, one hand classic palm it in, or it can start. Oh, and here's a tip, so many little details I don't want to forget. This panel, it's not taped perfectly flush, there's a little bit of a lip. This is another great little detail of John's. Little bit of a lip, so I didn't tape it so it's perfectly flush, I taped it so there's a little bit of the card here, so that when this is open, there's a bit of a lip. And I think, it's a beautiful little detail. I think it adds a lot to the visual. That it's not a perfectly flush, but it's got a little bit of a lip. So the other thing is that the thickness of this panel is not the same thickness as a deck of cards. I've deliberately made it a little thicker. Why not? Cover my angles a bit more, okay? So this is actually a little taller, I guess, than the side of a pack of cards, all right? So a couple little points on that. I've made a hole. I've got my panel here. Now this whole thing can sit on top of my deck, okay? And because of this little cutout here, notice nobody, I mean in a regular performance situation, not necessarily in a studio here with lights and an unblinking camera, but in a regular situation, this gimmick, no one would ever notice it sitting quietly on the top of the pack, because the only thing you see through the hole is in fact the back of the playing card, because the gimmick doesn't quite block the hole. Now notice, here's another tip, I'll give you another tip on that one actually in a second. So, this is my setup here. Okay. I can have that set up in the card case and do this as an opening effect. All I have to do is push this out for the flap to fall into place, pull it back, and I'm set up for this really pretty illusion. And this was my first handling for this, was to have this on the side, okay? So all you have to do, it's here, like I said. On the offbeat, I push it off, sort of turn my body, talking to someone. I push, let the flap fall, pull back, and I'm set up. I'm done, okay? Now, I regrip the deck like this from the side as I go into my pocket for a pencil, hand that to someone, and say, would you do me a favor? I want you to take that pencil, and I want you to poke out your eye, okay? Just poke out your eye. And people are laughing and chuckling. Plenty of misdirection for me to do the one, all I have to do is come over, and while apparently squaring the cards, just kick the deck back just enough to clear the hole there. And I'm into this perfect illusion, okay? So I'm here now. Now you would swear that's the side of the pack there, okay? But you can take the deck now, and I can push this, and because the rest of the cards are hidden in my fingers, I can do this beautiful illusion of the pencil going down through the whole deck of cards, okay? Looks great. Pull it up, and pull it right through. Let's see if that'll pass through. Oh, there, pass through. Now, if I come in and just square things up here, okay, I can either immediately flip over the pack, okay, and the base of my fingers, as I turn over, the work is done. And what I can do is either close this flap, flip it around, or even easier, it's just to turn the whole thing over and spread them out, okay, and you can show them absolutely unharmed. Now, you can do that as an opening effect. You can take out your cards. Say, they may look like ordinary cards, but frankly, take the pencils, look, and it's kind of boom like this, spread them right out again, and then in putting away the pencil, cop off the gimmick and go into your first trick. Easy, you can do that. Or you can create a presentation around it. What you can do, of course, is force a card that already has a hole through it, have it put back, but conceal that. I mean, that's easy, certainly like this. If I got at the bottom, if this had a hole in it where I wanted it to be, it'd be a very easy matter for me to cut the pack. They call stop like this, turn it over and say remember the card, and all I've done is flip the cards over to cover the existing hole. So now I'm in a situation where I can push the pencil through the entire deck of cards, pull the pencil out, spread through, and the only one that has the hole in it, of course, would be the selected card. So you can make a great whole presentation around the idea of the pencil melting through the deck like it's a ghost, essentially. Then spread through and find that the only one that actually took the hole and kept the hole was the selected or thought of card. That's one way to go. Now, John came up with this idea of, because he had, for him, and there'll be some people like that out there, I'm sure, he didn't like this grip. For him, this grip looked, whereas for me it feels totally comfortable to hold a deck like that and do it. He thought it'd be better if the hole was in a different spot in the card. So let me finish up here by showing you John's cool idea. He has the hole not near one end, but near the middle of the card. All right? Now what this allows him to do too is if you close the flap, if, not on this side, that's the gimmick, on the back side of the gimmick, if you were to tape a piece of the blue back design, or whatever back design you're using, when the flap closes, this all of a sudden would show through here, and you could handle it really freely now because it'd be essentially an invisible hole because the back design would be showing through. So you'd be making essentially a double-faced gimmick out of it, something to keep in mind. Now John's handling is he prefers to do it, and this is what I showed you in the preview here, where rather than be holding it this way, you're actually holding the deck like this, okay? You're here, this slides forward like this, and you're holding the deck, there is the grip. Got to clear that. There's the grip there. Now like I said, to me that's more angly. I'm not as comfortable with it, but you do have that beautiful show of it going down through the side here, like this, okay? But to me it's definitely more angly. I mean, it's a nice show and all, for sure. I mean, you tell me, like there? Okay, good. It's a nice show and all, but like I said, I prefer going out the side, like this, boom. And of course, now this is my actual, I've angled the deck. decks here, but I mean, I'd rather cover it with my body here. I find for me this is more angly. But again, just by squaring up the cards, you reset the whole thing with a gimmick there. And it's a simple matter, again, to turn over the pack, spread through, and show them all legit. Whatever you do with this gimmick, I mean, whether you're going to make something, use it. I know some of you will use it with that idea I suggested about changing the deck of cards into your rope. What a great transition that'll be. Maybe if you're a kids performer, you've done a card trick, you'll say, should we do another card trick? No, how about a rope trick? Some of you will use it that way. I know some of you are going to use it with this opening effect where the deck has been cut, quote unquote, and then fused together as an opening effect. Some of you will use the idea of not only having it as an opening effect with the pencils through the deck, but in the end, the only one that has the hole in the card is the selected or thought of card. It's really one of these things with a lot of uses. I know I could probably spend another 3 years on this and come up with 6 other really cool effects, including the levitation idea. There's a bunch of stuff. Please, as I always say with my projects, I know these are strong commercial ideas. I know some of them will go right into your repertoire, but please, if you come up with another cool idea for this gimmick, let me know. I promise to give you credit, and I just love the idea of creating something that goes out in the magic fraternity, gets people thinking, and then they share back, and then I can share that through my email or whatever you want, okay? That's Camouflage. Have fun.